Hi everyone, I'm Virginia and today is Technique Tuesday. I'm going to be showing you a new stamping technique to make stamping more fun for you. I love techniques. They really make me push the limits a little bit, and I love trying new things. So let's get started. So look at this neat card. It looks almost like wood grain wood or a wood burning. I'm going to zoom out so you can see a little better, but I'll bring it up closer so you can really see there's actual texture that we're going to use, and we're going to work on watercolor paper today. Just in case I forget to mention it, I'm Virginia Kilmore. I'd love to be your preferred demonstrator. And if you should need anything this week or next week, don't forget to use this code to help out a hostess. All month long, we have Designer Series paper on sale. I've been showing it all week long. This is the list of papers. If you would like me to post that somewhere for you, I'd be more than happy to share this list with you. I have to tell you, I've already ordered quite a bit. It's coming Wednesday of this week, so I'll be using some next week on a lot of my cards. But let's get started with this technique. We are going to start off with a piece of watercolor cardstock that's been cut down to 3 3/4 by 5. And we want to find the smoother side of it because it makes it easier to stamp on. There's a side that's textured and there's a side that is a little smoother. When you get the cardstock, just feel it. You'll be able to tell right away. I am going to be using soft suede ink, and I am using Celebrate Sunflower stamp set. I'm using this big flower and Thanks a Bunch. I use that so often to thank people. I absolutely love that thank you. I think it's just so pretty. And now I'm just making sure I've got lots of ink, because watercolor paper is a little bit harder to get ink on because it is thicker and it just takes longer. Watercolor paper is designed for just that, lots of water. So because the ink isn't super watery, we have to leave it on for a few seconds. Just let it soak in. I'm slightly rocking it, but not much, because we don't want to get any of those little ugly, I don't know what you call them, raspberries. That's what we call them in my studio. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my sentiment, and be very careful not to rock it because I can see I have a little bit of ink up at the top. Oh, I did it perfectly. So I am going to leave this open. I don't know if you can see the ink right there. Should I need a little bit of extra ink, I've already squozen that this pad before I opened it so that there's ink already on here. I may not need it, but if I do, I have it. I'm also using their new water painters. I had thought that they were just like the old ones, but they're not. They're actually a little bit better. And there's two things that I really like. One, there's a paintbrush now. And I like that because sometimes I want a wide swatch. And I did use that a lot. And then there's this one that's thinner. If you're a little bit nervous about watercoloring, start with this one. And it actually has a spot where it says push. You see that? Push. That's where you're going to push some water out of your paintbrush to get started. I like to push it right onto my hand so I can see how much water I have. Ooh, there's a lot of water on there. Probably a little bit more than I wanted, but that's okay. I'm going to work through it. It will dry much lighter than it is. I need to put some down in here. And I'm going to pull this to the sides a little bit. So much for keeping my surface clean. I'm going to have to get a new surface for tomorrow. And now I'm going to set this aside to dry. I think if I had it to do again, I might have not put so much water on there. But that's how those techniques go. I'm still working through here. I could go back and stamp again. And I think I'm going to try that because I need to run it through a cutter anyways. So I might as well do a second one and see if we can control that a little bit better, because boy, did that get away from me. Now this piece is a little bit bigger than my original piece. There's the part. And now let's do our sentiment. We'll see which one we like best. You're seeing now what happens with techniques sometimes. They just get away from you, and you can't always help it. I'm going to make sure my brush is a little bit drier this time, and that's a lot better. Now I do want it super wet when I'm down in here so I can spread this. So I'm actually using my wrist or the top of my hand a little bit. Going back in, back and forth. I think I'm going to use this big paintbrush because I really like that the best. Better squeeze some water out. Don't want too much. Okay, that's probably just enough. That's a lot better, and I'm getting a lot more control. But you'll notice that there isn't much ink right in here, so I'm going to have to come back in. And I can use the edge of my brush to control some of the ink movement across here. And I'm going to pick up a little bit and just stick it in here. Now all of this will change quite a bit as it dries. It's going to dry a lot lighter, so it's not going to seem quite as intense as it does right now. That's what's always scary about these techniques, is they're a little bit overwhelming when you first start. But as it dries, it is going to dry lighter and lighter, and it won't seem so strong. Okay, I think I'm much happier with this one. I'm going to still put a little bit in here. I just want to make the unevenness that's up there happen over in here. I need a little dark line right through there. What do you think? Think I'm done? I tend to overdo. That's the biggest problem with watercolors, people overdo. So we're going to run both of them through the embossing folder, but we need to let them dry. So I thought we'll build a little bit of the card and then come back and try to dry it. I probably shouldn't leave that there so that you guys can see what we're doing. So for our card, we need to place this on our backing, and then the brown gets put on our other piece. Probably not a good idea to put something down here, but right now we'll use this. Just because that's wet, I should have put that down first. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this on. I could, if I wanted to, put some kind of little sentiment on the inside. This would be the time. And for those of you that like to decorate your envelopes, this is also a great time for that, because we're waiting for it to dry a little bit. Okay. Now I've gone ahead and made my little cutout ribbon, but I am going to first of all trim this down and run it through an embossing folder. This needs to be 3 3/4. So I have to take a little bit off each side. I don't want to take it all off one side. I probably could have taken it more off the other side. But it's harder to cut when it is wet too. And I am going to take it off the top because I'm too close to the bottom. So I need to get that down to 5. Yeah. Okay, it's still off center. I would have done much better to have cut it all the way from the other side. And you know what? I'm just going to cut a little bit off. No one's going to know that I'm not quite Sometimes we just have to do things a little differently than we expected. Now this is starting to dry quite nicely. Same with this one. This one is nowhere near as bad as I thought when I first started. I was not happy with it, but as it's drying, I'm very happy with it. But I love the strength of this one, so I'm going to go ahead with that. I'm going to run that through our new embossing and cutting machine. And because I'm using an old folder, it's an old 3D folder, I have to use a different type of sandwich than I'm used to. Notice that I want the planks to go in the direction that I did the brush strokes. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that in there. Normally I would use for embossing 2 clear plates and the base plate, or the 3D embossing folder base plate and the base plate. But because I'm using an old folder, I have to use just one of the number 3 clear plates with this to get it to run through. And that only happens if you have old plates. It won't affect you. If you have new embossing folders, you're all set. You don't have to worry about that. I'm going to get that out of here. Pull it out. This card is still slightly damp, but you can now see the texture in there, which is really cool. And I'm going to go ahead and glue it on here. It seems like I need to cut a little bit off the top as well, so I am going to do that before I get myself okay. One of the things about cutting something after it's been embossed is sometimes it doesn't cut as well in the machine, so be aware of that. Oh my God, this card is really ugly. It has not come out well. We have to embrace our disgrace sometimes, right? I was so worried about making sure it was down far enough. I went too far down. Well, at least you can see my original card. Cards, like babies, are not always perfect. Except for my grandbaby, she's perfect. Okay, and now I just need to put it on my card backing, which is going to go on with a little bit of glue. And my card is done. I don't think that this is one of my better cards, but we all have cards that we think are terrible, and then when the person that gets it, loves it. Oh, we have to be our own cheerleader once in a while. I think the main thing that I would suggest is to be very careful with how much water you get on there. But actually, online, this actually looks really good on the camera. This, you can't see the streaks. So I'm really being awfully picky. Try out those aqua painters. Practice a little bit before you do your card so you get something you like. And I hope you've enjoyed today's Technique Tuesday. They're really different but very cool at the same time, aren't they? I'd love to be your demonstrator. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow at 1.